Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. Former Madison County Illinois Treasurer Fred Bathon was elected county auditor in 1988. He became the county treasurer in 1998 and resigned in 2009 amid criticism of bid rigging in the sale of liens on tax-delinquent property in Madison County. Mr. Bathon pled guilty in federal court after admitting that tax sales from 2005 through 2008 were fixed to benefit politically connected insiders. In December 2013, U.S. District Judge David Herndon gave Bathon a 30-month prison term, $20,000 fine, and 2 years on probation. Well, in May of 2015, the Belleville News-Democrat reported that the Federal Bureau of Prisons listed Bathon's discharge date as June 25, 2015, rather than 2016. As of that reporting date, records showed that Bathon had already been transferred to a residential reentry facility in St. Louis. The early release date was given the blessing of U.S. Attorney Steve Wigginton's office and the approval of Judge Herndon. Our guest today is Steve Korris, courts reporter for Madison-St. Clair Record, a Metro East legal newspaper. Mr. Korris has been following the Bathon case for some time and is here today to comment on it and its associated lawsuits. Steve Korris, welcome to the conversation.
Glad to be here.
A lot to be said about all this. As I was saying just before we went on the air, and for the record, I've known Fred Bathon since I think even before he became auditor. But so I know Fred Bathon, so I'm talking. And none of this is personal. This is all about the record and about criminality. Mm-hmm. So let's just start from the beginning. You have a few comments that you wanted to make about this this entire case. You want to give people a little background first on why we're even talking about this case?
Yes. If you're behind on your taxes,
property taxes,
the county will give you one last chance to redeem them and then take your taxes to an auction, and anyone can bid to pay your taxes and charge you interest.
So then you owe them instead of the county.
That's right.
Okay, go ahead.
And the interest is capped by law at 18%. So you might have to pay a lot more to the tax buyer than you would have ever had to pay to the county, and your risk of losing the whole property begins to increase because the interest compounds. So that 18% maximum is a windfall for the tax buyer, and what Fred Bathon did, and what he admitted doing, was to make sure almost everyone got 18% on almost every bid.
Well, he had a bunch of friends in the room that were bidding, is that right? And I shouldn't call them friends, I should call them political associates, people who had donated to his campaign, and people who he knew and wanted to make them benefit from this tax sale. Is that right? Essentially correct?
It is, and although it was phrased as if he did this so he himself would get campaign contributions, these tax buyers were persons who spread the political money around pretty generously to the Democratic Party. So it wasn't just Bathon's campaign that benefited, it was the whole party.
Right. Okay.
And in 2004...
Was this all hush-hush, or was this generally known that this process was going on? That instead you need to explain further, that the process normally starts where people start bidding at 1 or 2%,
right,
and then start to work their way up to the 18% cap, right? Now, why don't you go
That's
there?
correct.
Yeah.
It's what they call a reverse auction because the person who offers the lowest rate of interest is the one who's supposed to get the taxes. So if I ask for 18% and the guy next to me asks for 4%, it's the job of the treasurer to award it to the 4%er.
So you're not hurting the property owner as badly at 4% as he would at 18%.
Right.
Okay, so go ahead. What actually happened?
In 2004, the sale of 2003 taxes was sort of chaotic. And one of the tax buyers, John Scott of Champaign, objected so strenuously that prior to the 2005 sale, he wrote a letter to the state's attorney and said,
in Madison County.
In Madison County,
right.
To state's attorney. At the time it was William Mudge, who is now a judge, saying what happened last year was wrong and you need to stop it and you should send an assistant state's attorney to the next
into
auction.
the room so that you could observe this. Right.
The response was entrusted by State's Attorney Mudge to his assistant John McGuire, who composed a letter saying that nothing had gone wrong. And so what had been done on a sort of chaotic and informal basis in 2004 was multiplied for 2005. If the state's attorney said, this was okay, then I'll try to get away with this. And so when the auction came, people were just screaming, and then the auctioneer and the clerk would say,
point at the 18%,
point at the
guys.
18. And there was a seating chart to make sure that the auctioneer and the clerk didn't blow it. They actually had a seating chart, so the bids were not awarded by competitive bidding. They were arranged by where you sat. And the 2004 auction that was certified as being honest and clean is now up on YouTube, and Bathon clearly tells everybody, we're going to move it around. We're going to move it around. Some of you don't like it, but we're going to move it around. So the idea was never to have...
What does he mean by move it around?
Award the tax lien
the 18%
in a rotating
right.
basis. Make sure everybody in the room got
a benefit.
High interest.
Right.
And that's on tape, and anyone can see it, and that's the event that the state's attorney said was clean.
Now, none of what we're talking about here is speculation on your part, is it? These are facts.
That's right.
Everything that we've said here are all facts.
Absolutely. It's
okay.
Well documented. I was at Bathon sentencing, and it was all very neatly laid out. Nobody denies any of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So here we've had this happen in 2004, which you say is available to watch on YouTube. Somebody taped it?
The county taped it as a matter of course.
And did they do 5, 6, 7, 8 also, or you don't know?
I heard that one of those tapes has vanished, but that's not record. But no one can find it. It has not been shown.
I could say something, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut. So all right. So well, there is at least a tape of 04 of the clean. Mm-hmm. The clean one that was given the bill of okay. And so this happened again in 5, 06, 07, and 08. Mm-hmm. What finally brought this to the attention of the U.S. Federal courts?
My competitors at the Belleville News-Democrat deserve a lot of credit. They were the ones that brought it out first, and then the current treasurer, Kurt Prenzler, came in and reformed the practices and set it up the way it probably should be set up, where there's actually some sort of computer program that awards the bid in a scientific way.
Mm-hmm. And so now Mr. Prenzler, Kurt Prenzler, who is currently the treasurer of Madison County, you just said reform the plan, and so the tax buyers are happier with this system?
Well, the honest ones certainly are, although the average yield has gone down from something close to the maximum at 18 down to about a third of that, less than 6%, and it might even be less than that now. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And just so that people fully understand this, so the county, they're made whole because they're being paid the taxes that were owed by these homeowners and they didn't pay it. So the buyers are paying the county, so now the county's whole. They have all the tax money that they should have had, right?
That's right.
And these tax buyers, they're sitting on a piece of paper that says, hey, now you owe me and you're paying me X% interest. Of course, at 18, boy, that really doubles pretty, in a very short number of years compared to 2 to 6. Mm-hmm. What happens if you don't pay this person that bought up the taxes in a timely fashion?
Then they can take your house. So a lot of people who came out on the short end of this deal, a number that is not yet known but might yet be established, a lot of people not only got ripped off for their money, a lot of people lost their houses.
Mm-hmm. Now there is a lawsuit about this?
Yes.
Describe what's going on there.
Victims of this conspiracy filed a lawsuit to recover their losses, and they asked to have a class action, meaning that there are roughly 7,000 people who lost money in this, and so a single plaintiff can represent all 7,000 and seek a recovery that will make all of them whole.
So instead of each of them having to have their own attorneys and go through the expense of having their own attorneys and filing separate paperwork with the court, they all combine together to have one firm or one group of lawyers that their job is to represent all 7,000 or approximately whatever that number is of them, and then this process goes forward. But yet that has to be certified by a judge. You just can't walk in and say, oh, I want a class action, can you?
That's right. So no Madison County judge could take this, so they brought in William Becker from Clinton County, and sure enough, he certified a class action in June.
June of 2015.
Yes.
Okay.
So
this is we're in October. This is October 13th. So June, July, August, September. So that's only 4 months ago.
And they seek recovery from the county, from Bathon himself, and from each of these tax buyers, and from the array of businesses that these tax buyers operated under. Some of them had 4, 5, 6 different entities. Mm-hmm. So the county rushed to the appellate court in Mount Vernon and said, this isn't a class action, decertify it. And the appellate court said, we're not even going to look at it. So then they took that to the Supreme Court, and it's sitting there right now.
This is the Illinois Supreme Court.
The Illinois Supreme Court.
So Madison County government is fighting this fighting the class action suit, or fighting their inclusion in the class action?
Fighting their inclusion, but whatever, if they succeed in throwing out this order of Judge Becker, then all the tax buyers benefit from that. So in effect, they're arguing for all of the defendants.
What is their argument to decertify this thing that the judge has already certified?
That all 7,000 victims have different characteristics. And the fact that you were charged 18% doesn't prove that you were robbed to that extent. Maybe you would have had to pay 12. Maybe you would have had to pay 6.
Or 2.
There you go. So they want individual analysis of every single claim. A class action is never a perfect way of distributing a recovery. Like if everybody gets $20 because their stove door tipped over. It's not $20 damage to everyone, but that's the closest you can come. So the county says, we, the county, didn't gain a nickel. So why sue us? And Judge Becker, at a hearing, told a lawyer for the county, if I take $5 out of your wallet, and give it to the court reporter. I haven't gained anything, but you're out $5, and the court reporter has $5 that don't belong to her. So a little country wisdom from the Clinton County judge. To claim that you didn't benefit from a crime is not a great defense.
Are you familiar with the workings of the Illinois Supreme Court?
Fairly.
What would you say that their attitude might be in an argument like this? And I know that the courts can do whatever they will do, but what do you think that they're, based upon the past, what their demeanor might be?
Well, Becker held a hearing while this was pending at the Supreme Court, and he said statistically the fact that the appellate court wouldn't touch it suggests that the Supreme Court won't touch it, but this is a special kind of petition to stop a case in its tracks, and that's hard to do. If the certification holds up and a trial is held and an amount is awarded, then they can go to the appellate court and eventually the Supreme Court and try to get the whole thing thrown out. So if they lose right now, it's not over. They can come back and fight it later.
I see. Well, it'll be interesting. Now there are other lawsuits, or is that the main event, or there are other things involved in this case as well?
There is a suspicion or an allegation that St. Clair County was doing the exact same thing year after year with the exact same tax buyers. So now...
In the same years?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So now those folks in St. Clair County have filed a suit in federal court, not St. Clair County, but in federal court, to get a class action certified. And then a bank in Chicago, U.S. Bank Trust, is suing over a single property, claiming their loss exceeded $50,000 because they were the note holder on the mortgage and it was sort of swept out from under them. So a single case now, not a class action, alleges more than $50,000.
Well, there must be more to it than that, because the attorney fees by themselves are going to well exceed $50,000. So somebody must be making a point.
There might be a whole lot more. In fact, that lawsuit started with one of the tax buyers as a defendant, or his companies, and then it was amended just a few days ago because you can't have a conspiracy with one defendant. So they've named two tax buyers now, and that's a brand new complaint, and I'm very interested to see what that one's about and where it's going to lead. It's interesting that the house originally was sold for $166,000, and I went and saw it, and it's a scary reminder of how far off the track we got 7 and 8 years ago. If that house is worth $166,000, well, it isn't now. It just plain isn't. And I'd like to also point out that federal law that Bathon went to prison under, and 3 tax buyers, would have allowed the prosecutor, Mr. Wigginton, to seek restitution. And he did not do it because, just like the county is arguing now in court, it's too hard to figure out what an individual lost, therefore we won't even try.
Well, loss of integrity, for example. That might. I was reading the U.S. Attorney's website this morning before coming with you, and I saw some stuff that was on there that indicated that corruption was a big item in the U.S. Attorney's agenda. That they thought that was an important thing, that it really hurts the community that there would be public corruption, and that they needed to work on it, which is why I was surprised to hear that Mr. Wigginton, who, by the way, at one point, and when this was all going on, didn't he work for the fellow who's now the judge? Didn't he work for Mr. Mudge? Yes, in the state's attorney's office in Madison County.
But I think it might have been prior to these crooked sales. At some point, he joined Michael Weilmunster
I see.
as a lawyer and got out of the county and into private practice.
Well, I'm
But
just
yes,
trying to figure why the U.S. attorney, who's normally pretty tough as a U.S. attorney, why he's taken such a soft approach to a political insider like Fred Bathon. Political insider in the Democrat Party,
Yes.
in a state which is primarily Democrat, in two counties that are primarily Democrat, Madison and St. Clair counties, Illinois.
Yes, and the great mystery behind Bathon's early release is that the Wigginton's motion to reduce his sentence is under seal. Judge Herndon's order granting it is under seal.
What does the term under seal mean?
That you and I can't look at it. It's a
Who do you have to be
it's a
to look
secret.
at it?
The U.S. attorney and the judge, and that's about it. It is a sealed document. The law allows a prisoner who snitches to have his sentence reduced. It's the only way you can get these great big reductions like Fred got. You have to snitch.
Snitch meaning to
You have
talk
to
about fellow
tell
conspirators.
about crimes that you know.
Right.
And yet it can only be granted if the prison information results in a new indictment, and we're at half a year now since it was announced or revealed that Bathon would get out, and no new indictment has come. And there were also reduced sentences in the St. Clair County drug scandal. Judge Christ's cocaine supplier and Judge Cook's heroin supplier got their sentences cut in
Now this is an
half.
entirely different case.
A
you're
different
talking-
case that
this
came
is
up
the-
at the same time.
This is
Yeah.
the one where a judge in, I forget what district it was, but basically out of Belleville, was found dead one morning with a heroin overdose, wasn't it?
Cocaine.
Cocaine, okay.
Intoxication.
A drug
Right.
overdose. And another friend who was another judge, he wound up being involved in this drug business as well. So
That's
he
right.
he was out of a job and went to prison, and now you're saying that he too is going to...
Well, Judge Cook didn't get his sentence shortened, but it was only 18 months anyway. In fact, he's coming out pretty soon. So again, these rewards are given out for successful snitching, but no one's being arrested. So we're either about to hear a giant expose, bigger than what happened 2 years ago in both of these cases, or else we're just being nice to our friends.
I see. Okay, we got about a little less than 5 minutes left here. And so we're going to cover in less than 5 minutes this other topic, which is in St. Clair County there have been several things filed having to do with the fact that the Illinois legislature cannot achieve a budget. And so people who normally would not have been paid because there was no state budget are being paid because of some judge's ruling in St. Clair County. Please explain to us how it is that when you have no budget that you're still getting paid.
The union contract or contracts have a sort of evergreen clause, that's the nickname, meaning, well, when this one expires, its terms remain in effect until we get a new one. So the unions, when the June 30, when the budget expired, the union said, well, we've got a contract and you have to pay us. State Comptroller Leslie Munger told them, I'll do it if a court will order it. So the public employee unions came to St. Clair County Court to get that order, and I think it was Judge Lachine that granted it.
Now the capital of the state of Illinois is in Sangamon County, as I
That's
recall?
correct.
So wouldn't you normally, if you were dealing with a state case, go into Sangamon County?
You would, or you could say X percent of our members are in Chicago, so we'll go to Cook County. But venue in Illinois is a wide open thing. Almost any case that belongs in a state court of Illinois can be brought in any court in Illinois, which is why Madison and St. Clair have so many more lawsuits than other counties. Mm-hmm. It's the county that plaintiffs like to pick.
Yes.
And so, yeah, the unions figure their best chance for a favorable ruling is St. Clair County.
Well, it's just the Illinois Constitution, which I know constitutions don't seem to matter all that much anymore, but the Illinois Constitution basically says the only way you can spend money is by an appropriation from the legislature signed by the governor out of the treasury. I believe that's pretty much how the rules read. And so without a budget, then there really are no funds which are available to be rendered out of the treasury. And that it seems to me that we have two separate processes going. The fact that they're collecting taxes has nothing to do with the fact that there is no appropriation to take those taxes and to pay it to somebody or some organization. But somehow this court has found a way to say, well, we're collecting taxes, therefore we have to pay this money, when they're not following a constitutional process. In other words, a contractual process is being violated as this viewer sees it.
I agree. And the comptroller, Leslie Munger, was explaining at a press conference a few days ago how she has to, every time a bill comes in, she has to put it on a priority list according to what the law is and what the precedents are. And yeah, the Constitution doesn't really drive those decisions. But if she pays a bill that was second to a bill that she doesn't pay, then she's in trouble. So it's a huge headache for her to try to figure out which bill to pay first when you don't have enough to pay all of them.
Mm-hmm. Is there other court action going on in St. Clair County having to related to this?
Yes. Way back in February, when the budget was still running, the governor decreed, executive order, that individuals cannot be charged union fees if they're not in the union. You can opt out of the public employee union, but they can still pull an amount out of your paycheck, which they call fair share, and then it's so close to 100% that it's really the same.
You got about 30 seconds.
All right. So that was a big move on his part to weaken the unions like Scott Walker had done in Wisconsin. But that one came to a screeching halt because the U.S. Supreme Court is about to rule on a case from California on that very point. So we'll do whatever the Supreme Court says on that one.
I see. So there's a lot of interesting action that's going on in the state of Illinois in the courts, and that keeps you interested.
Very interested. It's a historic moment for this state.
Thank you very much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. I've been speaking with Steve Korris. He's with the Record, which is a Madison and St. Clair County, Illinois legal newspaper. You can go to their website. It's been up here, and take a look at some of the things that are being written. You can also, we're going to upload this to YouTube, so if you want to show this to any of your friends, you can, and they miss this, they can take a look. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.